It's
right?
interesting.
So if you're the normal guy, there's this rich famous guy with 30 girls. That's 29 dudes who are lonely. And they end up watching porn. And if you have a porn addiction or you have a problem with porn, you have a problem with yourself. Because I guarantee if you were the kind of man you're supposed to be, you would have no time for that. And you wouldn't need it. I can confirm that's absolutely and utterly the case.
Yeah.
So the fact you even need porn shows there's a problem with you as a man. Because if you were the kind of man you could be, and I genuinely believe that any man can become anything, then you'd have unlimited sexual options and you would have no interest in that. And I do want to make this clear to the world because there's a bit of a misconception about my story. My father was in the military and then he left to become a professional chess player. He was a traveling chess player. You don't make money with that. My mother and father broke up at age 9. We moved to England purely because you get more help from the state. I was raised on welfare in Marsh Farm, which is the worst area of the worst town, Luton, with the highest crime rate. I went to a school with a 4% pass rate, single mother household effectively. Started from absolutely nothing, became a kickboxing world champion.
Your mother was English?
English, correct. So I started at the absolute lowest echelon of life and I would like to consider myself somewhere near the top now. I've been through absolutely every stage. So when I say to men, you can become anything you want, and my answer to you is masculine excellence, there's no other answer. I can't tell you how to rig the game and cheat the game. If we're all racing a race and I have a Ferrari and you have a Nissan, I mean, sure, you can get a bit better at driving, but you're probably going to lose. You have to get a better character to play this game of life. So that's why I preach masculine excellence, because for many of the world's problems today, porn, sexual access, being respected by your peers, making sure that your wife's going to stay with you after the children are born for a very long time,
that's right.
Being happy, anything, it all comes down to who you are as a man. The only answer is masculine excellence. There's nothing you can do besides hard work, accept the trauma and pain and suffering, and work harder than everyone else around you worked. And that's why porn's a problem. So I will genuinely say to any man out there who finds himself loading up that website, go take a look in the mirror and realize why no one wants to fuck you.
Fair.
No, and I said this to guys before, if you were a girl with all the choices she has, would you choose you? Think about it. And if you're honest with yourself, a lot of these guys, if they look in the mirror and go, you know what? No, I wouldn't choose me. Work out why and do something about it. Absolute and utter self-accountability. This is something that's also missing. I take accountability for everything in my life. Even going to jail, although it was unfair, although it's a matrix attack, although it's garbage, it was my fault. I sat there and go, what did I do wrong? How can I learn from this? Where is my part to play in this? What did I do? Because my actions are what I have the most control over. I have self-accountability for everything. If a woman doesn't want to sleep with me, I don't sit and say, women are this way, society's that way. I just sit and say, okay, why? What can I change? So any man who's loading up porn needs to go have a long conversation in the mirror and realize that he's not desirable or as desirable as he should be or could be. I come from absolutely nothing. I'm mixed race. My father was black and my mother's white. So statistically, mixed race, single mother household, bad area. I ticked every box to end up in jail. I ended up in jail for the wrong reasons. I guess
you fulfilled your destiny.
Can't escape statistics. I ticked every box to be a delinquent, and I refused to be one. I absolutely not refused to be a delinquent. I said, no, that's not who I want to be. I want to be a superhero. And I know the only way to be a superhero is to, 1, suffer, like Batman did, his parents died, and 2, work hard.
What does your mother think?
My mother's exceptionally proud of me. She still worries because mothers worry. But even when we were in jail, she said, well, I know you're both strong. So, like, she knows she has men. She knows she has,
That's pretty great.
Yeah, of course. And I think that's what, I believe especially also, I think a man has a duty to his last name. I think we carry the last name. We have a duty to our last name. I am a Tate. I am my father's son. The reason my father is discussed so heavily is because of my monumental success. I keep him alive via my success. I would love to think my son does the same thing. Yes. They will talk about my son in a way where they're so interested in his life path that I must be discussed by extension, and then I live forever. So I have a duty to Tate. I have a duty to my last name. I must perform. And this is what I said to my mother on the phone. I'm a Tate. It's fine. Oh, but the conditions are bad. Yeah. That's life. And even as a man today, you're waking up, you want to load up a porn website. You should have respect for your last name, and you should sit and say, is this who I am? Is this what I do? A lot of this comes down to the things we discussed at the very beginning. Self-respect, honor, dignity. Well, you have no dignity? I have too much dignity for that shit. And a lot of these men have no dignity, no self-respect. And it's all an extension. It extends of why they're never going to be who they could be and also what they do to cope with that. And yeah, porn is a coping mechanism.
What do you think of women?
I think women are some of the most powerful people on the planet, firstly. A lot of the conversations we're having, most people don't understand that women are the gatekeepers and women are the ultimate judges. Women are the ultimate judges, especially of sexual access, right? So when I say that maybe 40% of the letters I got in jail were from women, just love letters. Perfume on them and kiss marks. And the traditional masculine role is still respected and loved by so many women. If you were to ask the average woman on the street who hasn't lost her mind what she wants in a man, she would like to be financially provided for, physically protected. I love women. I think they are the most powerful and precious things on the planet. They give life. But I believe that when you love a woman, you should want to protect her and provide for her and take care of her. I don't believe you love a woman by wanting to do everything she says and cucking to her. I don't believe that because I love women, I should have no standards on what I expect in a woman. I don't think loving women is sitting there going, a woman can do whatever she wants to me and I put up with it. I don't think that's loving women at all. I think loving women is saying, I'm going to be the best man I can be. And the only way I'm going to be a good man is with a degree of standard. And I'm going to be the best man I can be for you. And when I say these things, I get attacked for being a misogynist. Because
Well, how is that? I think misogynist means someone who hates women.
Correct, because I have conversations with women who are, let's say I've done some podcasts with women who are very promiscuous. And I've explained to them that since the dawn of human time in every single society across the planet, promiscuity in females has been frowned upon.
Yes, that's true.
It hasn't been frowned upon in men, but it has been in women. I explained
In a big way.
In a big way. In many parts of the world to this day, you can't get married if you're not a virgin. I'm not saying all women should be virgins. I was explaining to her that female promiscuity has always been hated. In every holy book, it's disliked. You've bought into this new think the last 10 years, and you seem to think it's empowering. And I would argue that it's not empowering. And I sat there and had a conversation with this promiscuous woman, and I said to her that she is doing herself a disservice, and she's dishonoring herself, and she's never going to be happy or fulfilled jumping from bed to bed. And I was told that this makes me misogynistic because women are empowered and they can make whatever choices they want, and I'm insecure to believe that a woman who slept with 300 men is somehow changed mentally and her ability to bond and love a man has been affected by that.
But it is. That's true.
Well, unfortunately, you're going to end up in a Romanian jail cell for being a misogynist.
No, I mean, I love women. And so I've seen it, and that is true what you said.
The thing that's interesting is that women intrinsically understand this.
Yes.
Because if you see a woman dislike another woman, what's the first name she calls her? Slut. It's the first thing a girl says to a girl she doesn't like. It's the biggest insult that comes to her mind is that she's promiscuous, right? So it's interesting, but I've been called a misogynist for that. And then I've been on the internet for a long time. I've made some jokes. I've made some videos, and people don't understand satire or comedy. There's one that they keep repeating. I made a joke. Next to my bed, I had a Glock, like many people do, and then I had a knife next to my bed, and there was a comedic skit where it said, the girl caught me cheating, and she picked up the knife, and I slapped it out of her hand and said, you still love me? And they cut the bit out where I talked about the girl attacking me with the knife. They just took the bit where I say, slap the knife out of her hand, you're the boss, da-da-da, and he's a misogynist, and it's just taken out of context. And that's another thing that's happened to me, and I am aware of this, and like I said, I take absolute self-accountability, but the way you make jokes and make videos when you get 100 views is very different than the way you would make a joke or make a video when you get millions of views. And when they're trying their best to they'll look at a 4-hour video and find 3 seconds. I'll give you an example of it, where it hurt me very recently. I did a podcast where I was discussing corruption. I discussed which country I believe is the most corrupt country in the world. They start a lot of wars. And the answer to that by the person I was discussing it with is, well, you live in Romania, Romania is corrupt. I said, Romania is corrupt, correct. But I don't think there's certainly corruption, but they don't start monumental wars which end up in millions of deaths. I would argue that their corruption, because a policeman stops me and I can bribe my way out of a parking ticket or a speeding ticket, is far less destructive. So we discussed this at length for hours. They cut out the bit where I said Romania is corrupt and showed it to the judge. That kept me in jail. Ooh. Yeah. So, and that's my problem in a nutshell. Long format content, people will find a little bit, edit it up, and try and attack me with it. And that's where this whole misogynistic things come from. It's either from me arguing with promiscuous women on podcasts designed for promiscuous women to argue their point, and I destroy them so flawlessly that I'm a bad person, or something taken out of context. And it's insane because, like I said, the amount of support I get from women is actually monumental. The amount of mothers who write to me and say that their son's doing better than ever. The amount of women who write to me and say that their boyfriend's doing better than ever. The amount of women who love me and just want to meet me. This idea that I'm hated by women is probably the biggest lie about this whole story. I don't want to brag, but I can assure the world that's absolutely not true. I had thousands of letters of support from women. In fact, there was one girl, never met her. She would play love songs from her car outside the jail. So she'd put the music on and play love songs. And I managed to tweet out via my cousin the songs I wanted to listen to. Whitesnake, Is This Love? And and she'd play them for me. Never met her. Don't know who she is.
So you're in a Romanian prison cell requesting Whitesnake on the radio in the car outside.
Correct. And some girl would pull up and put
kind of a surreal moment.
Put her speakers on full and play me my love songs for a good 3 or 4 minutes before the police would come and make her move. I got a song a day. But yeah, this idea that I'm universally hated by women is insanity. That's not true.
So you said you're a mixed race. Your dad was black, your mom was white English. What do you make of the race conversation in the United States?
I think it's deliberately, they're trying to put fuel on the fire and they're deliberately trying to accelerate division. This is what I believe. I think that if a black billionaire and a white billionaire meet somewhere, I don't think there's much conversation about race. I don't think...
No!
I don't think there's any racism.
No.
Interesting, no?
They're not that interested in the topic, actually.
They don't care.
Right.
But amongst the lower echelons of the populace, they seem very interested in trying to turn us all on each other.
Yes.
I wonder why that is. And I wonder why they deliberately make laws and push media matters which are designed to do exactly that. I wonder why that is. We can sit, and I have my own theories. But I think what certain people in the world would be most afraid of is the white people of a certain economic class and the black people of a certain economic class shaking hands and saying, this is bullshit. I think that would be very intimidating for them. So it's certainly accelerated. And it's also very interesting because as a mixed race person, I will also sit and state, I don't look particularly black. Most people can't guess where I'm from. I've had more discrimination against me for being a straight male than I've ever had for my skin color. I've had more people look at me or have problems with me purely because of my sexual orientation and my generally masculine essence than I've ever had anybody say anything about my skin color ever. And I'll also say, if somebody has a real problem with my skin color, who cares? If someone's that ignorant, who gives a shit? It's also, I do find it amazing they manage to psyop people into being so brutally offended by it. If someone were to come up to me and say, you're not white, I'd say, correct. Have a nice day. Who cares? It's amazing how they've got everyone wrapped up in this. But yeah, it's certainly accelerated. And another thing that's very interesting about it, especially in America, a lot of Americans are insulated to, I feel like, world history.
Yeah, I've noticed.
You know, they're like, oh, slavery, slavery, slavery. Slavery was everywhere. Every country had slaves. Arabs had slaves, Chinese had slaves, Aztecs had slaves. Everybody had slaves.
The American Indians had slaves.
Everybody did.
A lot of slaves.
Correct. And they're like, oh, we've been enslaved. Everyone was enslaved. Unfortunately, the world wasn't such a nice place, right? And there's been ethnic divisions in every single country on earth since the dawn of time. There still is in many countries in the world today. They believe this is a uniquely American issue. And I would strongly argue that one, it's completely and utterly not. And two, I think that if you are black, white, Asian, I think if you stand up, self-respect, work hard, try your best, turn up on time, firm handshake, don't make excuses for anything, don't look for an easy way out, no matter what your skin color is, in America or England or any other Western nation, I think you can be extremely successful. I don't think anything's stopping you.
That's not the message you get from, say, Kamala Harris, who's also mixed race. Her dad was Jamaican, her mom was Indian.
Yeah.
But race is really at the center of her identity and her politics. What do you make of, say, Kamala Harris?
Well, let's look at why they purport the idea that depression is so powerful and that you can just catch it from the sky and now you're permanently depressed no matter what happens to you and there's nothing you can do about it and you can't improve your life and you can't be a better person, right? It's that self-limiting belief. I think by also pushing this racism argument, it's also very much the same thing. I think if you adopt that mindset, if you wake up and you're a particular color, you're purple, and you believe purple people can't make it, what's your chance of making it? 0.
Yeah.
Right? So that's what's so destructive about it. This is what I'll even argue when I argue this point with people and they try and say, oh, but this happens, and they pull out these statistics and all this garbage from the Matrix. I say, listen, even if the world's racist against purple people, the best thing you can do is be such an exceptional purple person that they need you they need you. The only answer is hard work. The only answer is self-accountability, masculine essence, honor, dignity, making your ancestors proud of you because you hold the same last name as them. The answer is the same regardless anyway. But when people like Kamala are pushing this racism agenda, they're trying to say to people effectively, you'll never be anything. And you don't stand a chance of ever being anything. And I think that makes people who aren't anything feel a little bit better about themselves. It's cope. And that's the only fans she has left, are losers who she's told it's okay to be a loser because there's no way you could have not been a loser. And I will argue you could have been something a lot more than that. And you shouldn't listen to anybody who tells you you're not going to be a loser. If someone were to come to me and say, Andrew, you're mixed race, you're from a single mother household, you're never going to be rich. I'll say, watch me. I don't believe you. I don't believe you. Who are you? So everything she's saying is 1, wrong. 2, it's destructive to believe in. 3, I think it's her last hope at having any kind of fan at all because she's largely incompetent. I don't think I've ever heard her put a compendious, coherent sentence together. And perhaps also, maybe that's the reason why she leans so heavily on race, because she's not impressive or competent. So she can say, oh, but I'm this color and I did it, instead of actually talking about how good of a job she's doing. Because if you have to discuss that part of her career or that part of her current life path, I think she'd be in a lot of trouble.
I want to show you video of Joe Biden's challenger for the Democratic primary, Robert F. Kennedy Jr.
Run it. Let's go. Up.
What do you think of him?
I think a strong body is a strong mind. I don't think there's anything wrong with a man exercising up until the age he dies. Why wouldn't he? I think that the bottom line of masculinity since the dawn of human time has been a propensity and a capability for violence. I think that's what makes a man a man. I don't see any possible negative connotation with being in good physical shape. I think that's a fantastic way to show discipline, which is very important in any man who's important, especially a world leader. In fact, I love the idea of an elected world leader being in fantastic physical shape. I think it shows that they're a motivated, disciplined person, and I have a lot of respect for him for that. And I think that in the military, we make it mandatory, right, to be in fantastic physical condition.
Yes.
So why wouldn't we have it mandatory for people who are in charge of the entire world? I think it's fantastic.
The President of the United States seems to be failing physically. As you look back at the country whose passport you hold at the president, what's your reaction?
Well, sometimes, and it's not very often, I consider myself ignorant, but I feel like there must be some magic I missed, because wasn't he the most voted for president in history?
Oh yeah, billions of votes.
Yeah, there must be some magic I just can't detect, Tucker. I don't want to.
More than Barack Obama, 81 million votes.
It's insane. And I mean, Barack, yeah, sure, he was very intelligent, articulate.
Yep.
He was concise and compendious with his ideas. He could make you understand how he thinks.
Yes.
But Joe must be better in some way. I can't seem to see how, and I guess the fault is with me. I don't know what to say about that one.
It's one of those lies that's so ridiculous that you're just like, okay. He got more votes than Barack Obama. Shut up, he did. Shut up. Excuse me. I want to get your take. This is sort of small ball, but it I think tells you something about a larger trend in the United States. This is a state senator from the state of Wisconsin in a public hearing recently saying in a discussion on a crime bill, fuck the suburbs. Here she is.
Fuck the suburbs. Because they don't know a goddamn thing about how life is in the city.
What is that? There's a hostility there. Where does that come from?
That comes from being a perpetual victim. That comes from being told that everything that's happening to her is not her fault and she has no self-accountability. Even though she's managed to become a senator, somehow she's still oppressed. And that means that everyone else who looks like her is also completely and utterly oppressed. And anybody who has a slightly better life in any way is, by extension, a bad person because they weren't oppressed.
Yes.
And that's where the hate comes from. The division's put there by these mindsets which are being purported by the people in charge of the world, convincing you that you have no control at all over your own life. And that's why she's so resentful towards people who have done well in life, not even as well as her. Right. I would also argue, perhaps I'm incorrect, that she probably lives in a suburb.
Of course she does.
So she's a hypocrite on top of that.
Yeah.
But hypocrites are, the fantastic thing about being a hypocrite is if you're a hypocrite with a little bit of power or influence, you're allowed to be a hypocrite because you're spreading information on the larger problem. In fact, this is actually interesting. One of my funnest things, I'm going to announce this here on your show for everyone to know, this is a world exclusive. I want to become a climate change activist. Because when I was younger, people would say, what do you want to be when you grow up? Do you want to be a fireman? Do you want to be Batman, et cetera? And I wasn't sure what would really make me happy. But now I'm ultra wealthy and I fly around on private jets all the time. I think that now is the time for me to become one of those hypocritical climate change activists.
100%.
It's going to be super fun.
Well, as your carbon footprint grows, your concern about carbon footprints grows.
Absolutely. Eat the bugs. Sell your car. How dare you eat meat? On my jet, of course, I have meat, but I'm allowed to be a hypocrite because I'm spreading awareness for the overall problem.
It's for the greater good.
It's for the greater good. I have to get to the climate change activist meetings. So,
which happened to be in Switzerland, I noticed.
Of course. So, although I'm flying on, well, before this arrest.
They're never in New Jersey.
Never. So before this arrest, I was on about 3 or 4 jets a week. But every single time I was flying on my private plane, I was extremely concerned about the carbon footprint.
Of course you were.
And so I am now a climate change activist. I just want to let the whole world know. Because once you get to a certain level of power of influence, you're absolutely not really allowed to be a complete hypocrite. So you're allowed to live in the suburb and then tell everyone, fuck the suburbs, and pretend that you're oppressed when you're a senator of the most powerful nation on the planet. Because it's a logic fail on every level.
So one of the human activities has got to produce the greatest carbon footprint is, I would think, war, right?
I would think so.
Diesel-powered machines, munitions going off. So I was a little bit surprised to see Greta Thunberg with Zelensky this morning.
What's interesting to me is this. Firstly, I would never kill myself. Secondly, imagine these people are so detached from reality. Imagine going, you know what we need to do? Brainwave. We need to drum up support for this garbage. Let's take the most loved woman, Greta, and the most loved man, Zelensky, and let's make them meet. Think about the PR. Let's bring a camera. And imagine people sitting around a table going, that's great. That's going to really make people support this. Who gives a fuck? I don't want to swear. I'm sorry, but some young girl turns up to a war zone who has nothing. Why is she there? What are they going to talk about?
I don't know.
But what's their conversation?
I think she only yells. I don't think she does talk.
I don't understand. Is she going to talk about how the childhood has been stolen from all those million Ukrainian men who have been blown to pieces? Like she talks about childhood being stolen because we drive, cars? I don't think she is. I don't think she's going to mention that. No. Is it just a big PR opportunity? Like what PR team came up with this concoction and thought, this'll keep them on side? It's mind-bending to me who even thought this was a good idea. It's crazy.
But of course somebody did.
Somebody thought it was a fantastic idea.
Have you ever met Greta Thunberg?
No, but me and her have had some internet arguments.
I think you went to prison for it, right?
Yeah, correct. Which is amazing because I'm a climate change activist. So I'm on her team. I was in Sweden during COVID. So we could have met. She didn't want to hang out with me, unfortunately. And then now I'm flying around on my jet everywhere, spreading news about climate change. Same thing. Like in my Bugatti, obviously it's got a big engine. I make sure to talk about climate change out the window as I drive. But I'm on her side. She doesn't seem to be very
You yell at the serfs as you pass about climate change?
Yeah, don't eat meat. Eat the bugs. What's wrong with you people? You don't care about the earth? Like, if you don't start caring about climate change, all those politicians with beachfront property are going to lose their houses.
Yes.
And they're very concerned about climate change, which is why they bought their houses on the beachfront, so they can be the first to let you know it's coming. The early warning system, right? They're very concerned. That's why they want to be right there on the beach. Quite honorable if you think about it.
Kind of on the front lines of the climate crisis.
Absolutely. Lead from the front.
So good.
But one more point about this. Sorry to go on and on.
No, I love it.
But when I say these things, people, you don't care about the environment. And I try and explain to them, I love nature. You love hunting, fishing, you love nature. I love nature.
Passionately.
The problem with all of these things is not that I don't like nature. The problem is that nearly any issue which appears to be virtuous on the planet today is Trojan horsed with garbage. That's the problem. I have no problem with fixing or maintaining or preserving nature. I have a problem with them telling me I have to maintain nature, them Trojan horsing my bankruptcy into the middle of it, knowing that nature won't be fixed, then telling me it's about nature and telling me I should agree with it. That's my problem. There's nothing left on the planet, no issue, which isn't Trojan horsed with absolute garbage. Yes. And if you're going to sit there and tell me that I need to give more money to the government to stop the sun from being hot, I'm going to argue with you that I'd rather keep my money. Thank you very much.
Yes.
So this is the problem with all these issues. It's nearly anything. When I argue against them, people are like, you don't care about the issue. I do. But you're not smart enough to understand that the legislation around this issue is so large, it hasn't even been read by most of the people voting for it.
Yeah.
And there's something in the middle of it which is going to damage every single person's life, which has nothing at all to do with the issue itself. And most people don't understand that.
They co-opt people's best instincts. Their love of nature, which is a virtue, of course.
Yep.
Their love of their neighbors during COVID. Don't you care about your neighbors?
Oh,
well,
completely.
Of course you do. And your grandparents? I revere my grandparents.
Of course. And you're a bad person if you resist. I was a terrible person for going to Sweden. You're a very bad person. You don't care about anyone else. And that's how they do. It's weaponized virtue. And my opposers, every single virtuous thing that comes out of their mouth is never from a place of virtue. It's from a place of hate.
Yes.
It's weaponized. And also, and I don't talk about this very often, but people can go right now to tatepledge.com. I donate $25 million a year to feeding children in war-torn countries, especially in the Islamic world, because that's where a lot of the war is. Nobody ever mentions that, ever. Nobody mentions any of the charitable work I do. Nobody mentions any of the lives I save. Nobody mentions any of the people who support me. They don't mention anything at all. They just come along and say, you're a bad person. And I say, well, if I'm a bad person, let's talk about the things you've done to genuinely benefit humanity, besides sit on Twitter and talk shit. Have you ever done anything for anybody, ever? Are you capable of doing anything? Because the things that make me a bad person, right? You don't like me for my principles and the fact I stand up for myself and the fact I have parameters and I say no, everything you hate about me. Those are the things that allow me to even do good in the world. If I was like you, mush, goo, I couldn't even help anyone. If you had to help someone today, how could you even do it? You're broke and you're lazy and you're stupid. You can't even enlighten anybody. You can just spread hate. How is that helping the world? These people are a net negative, genuinely. And that's what's so crazy about being attacked for your morality, like I'm being now. And when you're a good person in general, they attack your morality because the people who are attacking you are absolutely and utterly immoral. The ultimate hypocriticism. Ultimate. Even more than my private jet climate change stance. So it's certainly unique. I do like to believe, though, we're entering a new stage of consciousness. I do like to believe, at least from 10 to 15 years ago, more people are, I think COVID woke some people up. I do like to believe the MSM credibility is tanking in real time. Trump helped massively. Fake news. 2 words. Before Trump, when did you ever hear fake news? I didn't really hear it that often.
No.
Fake news, fake news, fake news. And he did a fantastic job of that, and he's starting to wake people up. So I'd like to believe there's a degree of us winning, but I just want to make it very clear to the people who attack me and the people who attack anybody who stands up for what they believe in, a lot of their virtue signaling is just hate peddling. And when they can't call you unsuccessful and they can't call you stupid, they have to find a way to hurt you. And the only way they can do that is to say you're a bad person.
I've noticed. Yes, I have. So here's Joe Biden expressing his concern about how Putin is doing in the war in Iraq.
Interesting.
It's hard to tell, but he's clearly losing the war in Iraq. He's losing the war at home. And he has become a bit of a pariah around the world.
Do you think Putin is losing the war in Iraq?
I don't think he's losing the war in Iraq. I don't think he's fighting a war in Iraq.
Okay.
He also said he's losing the war at home. I don't think he's fighting in Russia, and I'm also not sure he's losing. So it's a pretty interesting statement on many levels. It's scary. You know, it's a joke, but it's scary. Because I would never kill myself, but I think the reason he was put into office is because he's incompetent.
Yes.
Because that makes him easy to control and influence. That's what's most scary. It's not scary that he's become incompetent in office. It's that they looked at him and goes, that's who we need. That guy. That's what's most scary to me.
Does it surprise you that the weakest president is also the most destructive?
Weak men are always destructive because hurt people hurt people.
Yeah.
I don't know, I heard, someone said that to me a long time ago, hurt people hurt people. They were talking about a relationship and I said, that's true. If your heart's been broken, you're probably going to be a bit of an asshole and break someone's heart. Hurt people hurt people. And then I thought, well, if you're a weak man and you're going through life and you don't have the strength and resilience to resist the trials and tribulations of being a man, and you're constantly hurt by everything, and you're constantly upset and depressed and sad because you're weak, how could you possibly do good? Hurt people, right? To do good, you have to be a good person to begin with, and to be a good person, you're virtuous, and you've gone through a lot of things that made you strong. This is what's mind-bending to me, that the idea that strong men are somehow bad. And it's the ultimate hypocrisy, because as soon as something happens, especially physically, as soon as a liberal is attacked, they call the police. Defund the police! Call the police. Don't be masculine. Police officer, please. They want a big, strong man with a gun. Guns are bad. They want him to have one, right? So the ultimate hypocrisy on every level is absolutely and utterly insane. At the base realities of humanity, the absolute base reality, strength in men is respected and wanted. And I think that the closer you get to unfortunate circumstance, the closer you get to reality. They go hand in hand. And then everyone's looking for the strong men. So strong men should always lead, I believe. And for a longest period of human time, that's how society functioned. The strongest men led. But in the Western world now, that doesn't seem to be the case anymore. And weak men are emotionally led. They're not particularly stoic. They're impulsive. And I would say that the most heinous acts, perhaps, that happen in modern society today are purported and committed by weak men. I don't think a school shooter is a strong man. I think it's a weak man. I think it's a man who's been picked on, got butthurt, is upset, girls don't like him, never learned any emotional control. He's the kind of person who does exactly what the TV tells him to do. Act out your feelings, cry when you want to cry. Well, now he's angry, so now what? You told him to act out his feelings. What do you expect him to do? I think that weak men do the worst things. I think weak men hurt women. I think weak men rob stores because they don't want to wake up and work hard and go to work and do it the honorable way. It's a weak man who goes and steals. It's a weak man who beats the shit out of a girl. It's a weak man who shoots up a school. This is all weak men stuff. And society as a whole is telling men to be weaker and weaker, saying it's somehow the solution to everything because being a man is toxically masculine. Being a strong man is bad. It's toxically masculine. To be a good man, you have to be a very weak one. Well, look at the most heinous acts that are committed in society. Show me a strong, honorable, virtuous man of principle who's doing any of this stuff.
So weak men commit the atrocities in this world.
Absolutely they do. And it's weak men who also attack anybody of virtue, because I think when you're weak, you're intrinsically unhappy. Yeah. I don't think as a man you can be happy if you're weak. I think happiness and strength go hand in hand.
Yes.
I think that's how we're supposed to be, right? Even strength of mind, strength of conviction, strength of something. If you're weak, you're going to be miserable. So I do find satisfaction in the fact that most of the men who truly dislike me are miserable and weak. And also, like I said earlier about women being gatekeepers, women are fantastic. Women are they're like a barometer for society. I would say you can measure the strength of a society or the virtue of a society or how decayed a society is largely by the actions of many women. I'd like to argue that point. I can argue that point in many different ways. But women really want their man to be strong.
Of course.
They will punish you for being weak. And I'm not saying you can never cry to your woman. I'm not saying you can never open up to your woman. But there's going to become a time where she expects you to just be capable. There's a problem. And even if you don't know how to fix it, your job as a man is to say, I'll handle it. Even if you have no money and no hope. And to go find a way to fix the problem. If you're weak and go, I don't know, she becomes very resentful towards you. And she'll punish you for that weakness. And I think what she's trying to do on an evolutionary standard is inspire you to man up, because it's your job to protect her, isn't it? Of course. So if she sees you and looks at you and doesn't see you as a man who can protect her, she can't respect you.
So every survey of female happiness in the West shows just a a straight decline since about 1970 till now. Women are becoming less happy in the West. I think it's very obvious. What accounts for that?
How can you be happy when all the men around you aren't men, right? We are the most beautiful union that God has possibly created on the planet. A feminine woman and a masculine man. It's the most beautiful union that can possibly exist. It raises children the best. Both parties are happier. Both parties gain. It's a net positive for everybody. There's no negative. There's no downside. But if you destroy one side of the equation, then the other side is going to be completely and utterly miserable and unhappy. How as a woman can you be happy if you can't find a man who you believe can protect you, provide for you, sticks up for you, has morals, has principles? There's none of those men left. So then what they do is just go from man to man trying to find it. And by the time they've been through enough men to maybe find someone semi-close to it, they've been through too many men to ever be happy. And then you have the absolute destruction of Western society. We talk about why men don't get married anymore. I can tell you why I wouldn't want to get married in America. I don't see the point in being married to a woman who's had so many partners before me that she can't properly pair bond with me and then giving her the opportunity to financially destroy me. I think that would be a bad chess move. And I do believe in marriage. I think society would be better if everyone was married. I'm saying that if you're living in an immoral society, being a moral person, if you're not careful about it, you can get wrecked. If the game is rigged, you have to be very careful if you play it. So how do we encourage men to get married? Well, they need to be worth marrying, but so do the women, right? So everything's decaying on both sides. Everything's spiraling. One of the reasons I also got called misogynistic, and I'll say it here, I argue the point that for the longest period of human time, evolutionarily, women had to adopt and find a way to take the ethos of an opposing tribe perhaps quicker than a man could because of war. If the men would fight and a tribe lost and the women survived, they had to change how they thought to fit in with the new tribe to survive.
Yeah, because they'd be carried off.
Because they'd be carried off.
Of course.
Like the French women were sleeping with Nazis towards the end of it. Towards the end of Paris occupation, all the French women were sleeping with Nazis. When the Nazis got kicked out, the French women had their heads shaved because they got caught hanging around with German soldiers. The German soldiers killed their husband. 3 years later, they need to eat. So the German soldiers have a wage. He's handsome. It's amazing how quickly they can adapt. And that's for their own survival. That's fantastic. But then if you extrapolate out and you understand that to be true, then you also understand that women are more susceptible to programming to a degree.